What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Troll Bro Dude. And before we get into things, I would like to talk once again about our partners, Underdog Fantasy, the newest and best place to play fantasy sports and win big prizes. Right now on Underdog, if you use the promo code SLOP, that's S-L-O-P, you will get a $100 deposit match bonus. And it is extremely important this time of year that you use this code because this is actually how we're going to fund Sam's Thanksgiving dinner. So
I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry right now. This is like, I just, if you're like enjoying your friends and family, know that I'm in the slop pit. That's what we call where Trill keeps me. It's sort of like the Rancor like thing that in Jabba the Hutt's palace in Star Wars 6. But that's where I stay, and I'm not allowed to come out or get any food until I come up with a good bit or, you know, whatever the case may be. So
yes.
Trill has informed me that unless, you know, people use the promo code SLOP to get $100.
Promo code SLOP.
Yeah, promo code SLOP on Underdog Fantasy. I will not be getting food this year. So you will have to be looking at your, you know, your loving girlfriends. I would say, you know, boyfriends, but I feel like we don't have a lot of women in the audience. And, you know, I just want to eat. So please, little hoggies, make me eat. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. So once again, say the name.
It's promo code SLOP. Yeah.
Promo code SLOP. Thank you. Thank you, Sam, for saying that once again. On Underdog, when you use that promo code SLOP, you can do their pick'em, which if you're out of state, you're not in a pick'em state. If you're in Jersey this weekend, maybe for Thanksgiving, you can play their pick'em. You can go higher or lower on the best player stats across the NBA. You can also play against me in their nightly fantasy contest that I do. Follow me on Twitter at TrillBroDude. And once again, this is feeding Sam. So if you're an NBA fan, you want to feed Sam, please sign up for Underdog today.
If you want to not feel guilty while you're at Thanksgiving, looking, you know, at your uncle who's red in the face talking about Joe Brandon, you know, you could be talking to me. You know, like if you don't want to, when you stagger upstairs drunk and take your nice 4-hour nap and come downstairs at 8 p.m. and the rest of the family goes, well, look who's up and at 'em. You know that I'm hungry at that time while you're enjoying that. So unless you've used promo code SLOP, in which case you're an angel. Then
Thank you.
You've created a holiday miracle.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it, Sam. So let's get into things because what a night it was, folks. I was streaming last night during the game, feeling it was the closest thing to doing drugs without actually doing drugs. I was
just going to say the fact that you're here today means that we know the Sixers won because I had several people on standby for just in case the Sixers blew that game. But I'm glad to see that you're here and with us today.
Oh yeah, I'm here and I have the greatest afterglow I've ever had in my life. I feel like I legitimately woke up and felt like a new person today. I was talking about this a little bit on the stream last night, and I feel like it rings true because obviously if your team's really good at the beginning of the season, this isn't always the case, but there's so little upside to a November game in the NBA because it's like, it's so early in the season. Really, there's way more downside. There's a lot more disaster potential. Like you lose a game that you're not expecting to lose. It sucks. If you're a really good team, you kind of expect to win these games. But when you have a game like last night, you have Ben Simmons coming back to Philly. You have the Sixers down their 3 best players. You have the Nets at full strength for the first time in forever. I can't remember the last time the Nets were at full strength. Like it has been.
Well, they weren't at full strength. They were missing their best player.
Yuta Watanabe.
Yuta Watanabe, yes.
My apologies to the Yuta fam out there, who I know that
I'm like not being that ironic, by the way.
No, he's like really. I actually like him.
Best player, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's good. Like I was actually kind of mad we didn't get him in free agency because I remember there were a few games where he randomly played like decent against the Sixers, and I was like, I feel like he could be like a guy, and. Yeah. He's been very much so a guy for the Nets so far this year, but when you have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, plus Claxton having a breakout year. Joe Harris is back, but he has not looked nearly like himself so far to start the year. I just think that, like, the thing that I came out of last night's game thinking is, and we'll talk a little bit about the Nets first because I do want to get into the Sixers, but from the Nets perspective, once again, you want to talk about like the disaster potential. Like, that was a disaster game for them. You can't go on the road on TNT after you got blown out last week by the Kings in Sacramento on TNT. Go in there with Kevin Durant, with everyone healthy, and lose to the Tobias Harris, De'Antony Melton, Paul Reed Sixers. Like, that's just not something that you can do when you have that much talent. But with this next team, I kept saying it throughout the stream, like, look, they're not going to miss this many threes in most games. Like, Seth Curry and Joe Harris statistically are two of the greatest shooters of all time. They're 1 and 2 in percentage in NBA history in terms of just pure percentage. They missed, I know Joe Harris missed at least 3. I think Seth missed 3 wide open threes. Seth played for the Sixers for almost 2 years, and I cannot remember a game where he missed 3 wide open threes, like in his entire tenure with the Sixers. So that is not something that's going to happen. And that's something that can swing a game. Like, it was a close game. But at the same time,
1 for 7 for Joe Harris, 2 for 8
bad.
For Kyrie Irving, 2 for 6 for Seth Curry. So, those three guys going 5 for 17. Yeah, that'll do it.
It's not going to happen. Like, it's not a sustainable thing, but beyond that, the defensive effort, especially like early on, they had decent defensive effort, but once the Sixers really started to compete and kind of punch them in the mouth, the defensive effort from everyone on the Nets, including Kevin Durant, was kind of pathetic. Honestly, like, Ben Simmons played okay. Like, I didn't even really think Ben was a problem. Like, I thought that defensively, and I still don't think that he's at the level where he was before. I mean, Tobias Harris blew by him a few times. Like, that does not happen when Ben is at his peak as a defender. But, like, I came out of last night's game thinking they have a lot of similar problems to me that last year Sixers had, and a lot of these teams that build their team on star power, right? Think about all the players that are on the Nets, which are obviously the guys we've listed. Most of these guys were star players or kind of fake star players. Like, Ben Simmons was brought up to be a star, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, even Nicholas Claxton in college was like, had the ball a ton. They ran offense through him. Seth Curry, when he was with the Sixers, he was playing kind of we kind of needed him to be that perimeter creator type for us. And they really just have no one who is willing to do the dirty work. They have no one who boxes out. They have no one who hustles on defense, except for honestly Ben and Royce. Yeah,
they have no PJ Tucker. Yeah.
They don't have a PJ Tucker. They don't have a De'Antony Melton. Royce O'Neal's probably the closest thing that they have to that. And I actually think Royce has been pretty good this year. But like I do think that there is something to when you're building these teams, having guys that are just going to do like the Sixers who are, and I know that our stars were out, but like the Sixers are the worst offensive rebounding team in the NBA like every year. We got 18 offensive rebounds last night. So many second chance points. The Nets are honestly just like, and this is the one thing, like I think that they're wildly talented and I think they'll kind of figure it out over the next few weeks or whatever. And I was kind of talking myself back into them before this game, but it was like I had Sixers on Jake on Sixers on the stream last night. He hopped on while we were talking and he basically was just like, it's kind of just like another gutless performance. Like once you punch the Nets in the mouth, they kind of just fall over and die. Like they don't have
happened to them in the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
Celtics there was a really hard scrap fought game one. Jason Tatum ripped their heart out with that layup from Smart, and then it was never close again after that.
Yep.
Like you can get them to quit. They are cats, not dogs. This is a dogless team. Like they have 0 dogs. Just cats. So I totally agree with you, and I think that I think that's an underrated part of team building. I think people look over it with the Warriors because Draymond is quote unquote a star, and he does all their dog work. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? Like the Celtics have, Marcus Smart has always been our dog for forever, and I think Jalen has a little bit of that in him too. Like, you have these guys who are just tough, hard scrabble, don't let go of the rope, and I think teams like Phoenix, I think miss Jay Crowder as like the only dog on their team. You know what I'm saying? I think Devin Booker just doesn't. I think he kind of has that attitude, but it just isn't like as physical or big to kind of impose his will on the game. And you kind of need a little bit of that for bullying purposes, really, because that's what we're talking about. And yeah, I mean, Giannis is a bully, and the Heat have gotten away with this forever just by making their whole team into bullies.
Yes.
Turning you become so much of a dog that you further devolve into a rat, and that is the genesis of rat mode. Rat mode is just universal dog, acting even more feral. So rat mode, hence the rat mode. But yeah, I think it's a good thesis, and I think that it's just why the Nets are never going to be good. I mean, I don't know. I just don't think I've seen enough of that team. They're not gonna win anything. They're not gonna. They're the second there's any adversity in the playoffs, they're gonna fold like a deck of cards. Durant can be amazing, but nobody else on that team is gonna do anything.
And even Durant, look, Durant's amazing. He's been having an incredible season. One of the 15, 20 greatest players of all time.
Yeah,
he kind of like last night, look, I've been giving PJ Tucker a ton of shit recently for not being able to score, but PJ got in his grill, and there were a few possessions where when they would send help to KD, he would normally, this is a guy who just lives for those moments where he's either picking apart the team with his passes or he's just shooting over them or whatever. But I don't know if KD had any shots in the last 5 minutes of that game. In the fourth quarter, he did not shoot a ton. The second half, he kind of disappeared a little bit. Kyrie had a little bit of a run where he kept him in it, but it feels like, and KD said at the press conference that, everyone hates us. Everyone hates Kyrie and Ben and me, and I'm like, you're lumping yourself into that a lot of people love and respect Kevin Durant more. I would say more people than hate. In fact, players just probably the most respected player in the NBA.
Kevin seeks out people who disrespect him on purpose.
Sure,
you know what I mean? That's like a thing. That's why he's one of us. He's a poster. You know what I mean?
Yes,
yes. He's out here to get the posts off. That's why he is genuinely the most relatable NBA star, because he really is Ozymandias, everything, just the fruits of his labor turning to ash in his mouth, and it's just the ultimate curse. And I don't know, I respect that. I think that's sick that it could happen to a millionaire athlete who's, again, a top 12, 15 guy in NBA history. One of us, brother. Come on in and post.
Yeah, no, look, everything he's ever set out to achieve, he achieved it. And he still has to get these tweets off.
I respect that so much.
Deep down, he's like, I still got to fire these takes, and I will be doing it. I will be on there around the clock. I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
but and I think if Joe Harris gets healthy, and if Seth Curry is not the one thing I will say is that last night was the first time I thought Seth looked old, which he's always been a little slower, but I kind of he couldn't create any separation for himself off the dribble, and he's never been the greatest at that, but he's a little bit crafty, and I worry the thing about the Nets, if I'm in the regular season, I think they're going to figure it out, and they're probably still going to win 45 or 50 games if they keep this unit together by the end of the year. I think that they'll probably figure out something, and they'll probably come around near where their over-under was before the season. But like you said, in the playoffs, I'm not trusting this team. I think that they have an ability to fall apart. I know this was Ben's first game back in Philly, and it was going to be tough for him mentally. And I thought that he handled it okay. But you could just see the look on his face in the fourth quarter. And it's the same thing that we saw in the Hawks series where he just doesn't want to touch the ball. He doesn't want to do the things that he's been doing that have made him like somewhat of a more useful, good player recently with the Nets. And they kind of just need Ben Simmons to be the best version of Ben Simmons. And they need the shooters to figure everything else out. But like Joe Harris was completely unplayable. Shake Milton was targeting him down the stretch. Tobias Harris was owning him in the post. Shake and Tobias were absolutely incredible down the stretch of that game. De'Antony Melton might be, I would venture to say, other than drafting Maxey, I think De'Antony Melton's actually been the best pickup that Morey has had since he's been here. This guy is, I mean, we're going to do a bad contract draft in the Patreon part of this episode later. If I did a good contract from a team perspective draft, I think he might have like a top 10 good contract. I mean, he makes $8 million per year. And this is a guy who, when your stars are healthy, he's going to do all the little things. He can play the Bruce Brown role for Harden when he's on the court. He can set screens. He can pick apart guys in the short roll. He can shoot off the dribble. He can shoot off the catch. Defensively, he's a monster. Getting into passing lanes, stealing, on-ball defense is great. He's kind of like Thibault, but better on the ball in that regard. And then he's also just like he has games like last night and the game before that where like I think he shot 5 of 9 from 3 last night. Most of them were off the dribble. He is an elite role player, and
he's 24 too.
He's and I've been going sicko mode, of course.
Yeah.
I've been going John Nash and Beautiful Mind, where I'm trying to find all the statistics that I can find to see if there's any sort of like, I just don't think he's good enough of an offensive player to ever be like a star. Like, I just don't I don't think that it will ever, you can't shoot 48% at the rim and be a star in the NBA. Like, that just doesn't happen. Yeah. But he definitely has that elite role player thing. Like, my idea for him was like, could he become like a not as good at passing Drew Holiday or something like that?
Yeah,
could
like
he become
like a Marcus Smart, like a
Sure.
not quite as physical or big, but same type of food group as Marcus Smart, like in terms of role playing and
sub all-star with maybe that all-star impact.
Right. I think it's possible. I've always liked him. He was one of my guys. This was back when he was drafted, was like back when I was really paying attention to the draft, and I really liked him. I thought he should go in like the top half of the draft, and he was, I think, 34 or something like that. Like,
he went in the second. Yeah, Morey drafted him in Houston. Yeah,
right. And I've always thought he was a guy. Same thing. You know what I'm saying? The defense and everything just made a lot of sense for you. It was like something weird happened at USC. I think he got hurt or something like that. But like, really good player. Always kept my eye on him. Yeah. I don't want to take my victory lap, but I've been saying that I really don't think you guys are going to lose a ton of games. Like, as many games as you think, like during these guys being out, because Doc, the joke about Doc kind of doing well with.
I know he's Popovich. Players.
Yeah, he turns into Popovich the second he's got like zero talent on his roster. But I really do think that there's something to like kind of that egalitarianism. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't know to like look for Paul Reed until they look up and he's 21 and 18. Like that just happens. Like
I know.
Like, so it just and I think stuff like that's gonna happen. I think Thibault might have a night. I think there might be a game one of these times where George Niang goes 5 for 6 from 3 or something. Oh, like that.
He's been incredible recently. Yeah. No, he's been having those nights. Like in these games where guys are out, everyone is stepping up to an extent, and that is something that the Sixers have never had prior to maybe. And last year their record wasn't great, but they were competing with all these really good teams. You were like, they were going down to the wire with the Bucks, and it was like only Maxey and a bunch of scrubs. They beat the Blazers, they beat the Grizzlies. They had these really good wins, but now it's like, and I said, like, I was streaming during the game, and there was 3 minutes left of the game, and we went up 13, and we were like, we might win this game. They were up 13 with 3 minutes left. In our brain, we were like, they might win this game. Jock Vaughn benched the starters after this because he was like, the game's over. But in our brains, when you have Sixers fan brain, you're like, we're up 13 with 3 minutes left. There's a possibility. Like, we've been scarred so many times in these situations where we feel like the team, and we say, I'm talking all this, and they'll probably lose to Charlotte tonight, which I don't really care about, to be honest. Like, I think you come off a big win like that, it's you go on the road, it's fine. It is what it is.
It's a back-to-back, second half of a back-to-back.
It's a second half of a back-to-back. I'm not
travel
sure.
Second leg too. You know, it's not like it's a home and home. You know, so
yeah. But like, this is why I like to have. And one of the things that why we were both high on the Sixers going into the season was we thought they were going to have depth, right? Like, we were like, oh, they actually have real NBA players coming off the bench now. And other than Montrez, who was terrible last night, once again, they all have looked like actual NBA players. And I think that the two guys that I expected to step up were Shake and Furkan, but Tobias in the second half was incredible. Paul Reed was, like you said, like, Paul Reed is the mystery wild card guy where, like, on any given night, he can just have these incredible two-way games where you're like, where the fuck did this come from? Then he'll go back into obscurity and be on the fringes of the rotation or whatever. But you see like the randomness of this Sixers team can be a little bit of a benefit because, like, yeah, they had a hot shooting night. Yeah, they busted their ass and outworked them to a victory. But, like, these kind of things don't really happen. Like, this during Brad Stevens' tenure with the Celtics, this happened with you guys. Like, like, you were the hospital Celtics for a stretch, and, like, you guys would miss like 3 of your best players, and you would win games. And I was like, these things never. This is the one feather in Doc's cap since he's been the coach here, is that he really does get through to the lesser guys on the team and gets the best out of them in these kind of situations.
Well, I honestly, I think it's also like, you know, you kind of starve someone for minutes, they're going to show up. You know what I'm saying?
They're hungry.
That's the other thing. Yeah. Like, everybody's hungry. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are young players that haven't played. Like, Paul Reed sees Nick Claxton across the court from him and is like, all right, bet. Like, if I'm going to play, I need 20 and 10. I need to put 20 and 10 on this guy. And he did it, you know, like, that was the most predictable thing ever. I think we, like, literally all 3 of us when we were on with Chiodo said, like, the Paul Reed's gonna have a huge game. And it just happened. Yeah, because there's a freebie with that. So let me ask you, Trail, because I'm peeking at the Philly stats. Who do you think is the team leader in true shooting percentage right now
on the season?
Yes, for the season.
George Niang.
That is correct. George Niang with a 66% true shooting percentage to go with a 73.1 3-point attempt rate and a 44% from deep.
Amazing.
We call that the Hauser. He's your Hauser. You guys were just saying you don't have to say Hauser. You know, you got George Niang.
He's thick Hauser.
He's a thick guy.
Well, they call him minivan, and honestly, because he's wide and he, like, the way that we were talking about it last night, and he's kind of got a little bit of that Kyle Anderson in him, where, like, he's and Zach Lowe talks about this a lot when it comes to Kyle Anderson, where he's so slow that NBA defenders have a hard time when they're guarding athletes. When you're guarding Anthony Edwards in a game, or you're guarding, when he was on the Grizzlies last year, Ja Morant, your brain is like, okay, I'm guarding an athlete, right? And then you switch on to Kyle Anderson, or Kyle Anderson's running the backup units. Your brain can't, like, recalibrate to a guy that is that slow. George Niang kind of benefits a little bit to the same thing, where, like, he creates zero separation when he drives, or even when he's coming off a screen. But he has a quick release, and he has this, like, he's so slow that it almost makes him a little bit crafty as a creator, and he can get downhill, and teams don't expect it at all. And he actually ends up, like, he got 2 back-to-back and ones in a game the other day. And I've never seen, like, it blows my mind. He, like, and I've given him shit because his defense has been pretty bad in the past, just because he's a slow, like, it's not his fault. He's just kind of a slow guy. So it's hard for an unathletic dude when you get to the higher levels of the NBA to really compete and play deep into the playoffs. But like Chiodo's been saying forever, he's the perfect 10th man. Like he's the perfect like guy who's going to come in. He's going to fuck some shit up. He's going to hit some threes. He was screaming in Kevin Durant and Ben Simmons' face during the game. Like you need a mass hole on your team.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You need the belligerents. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like you need a belligerent player.
Yes.
It's honestly like because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking through like your team composition and what you guys need. It really is just that like the money resources that are tied up by Tobias just just need to get spent a little better, and outside of it, then you guys will be fine, you know. And I think you're 1 year away from being able to do that, like pretty you know, like especially if the Nets defer. You know what I'm saying? If you guys turn your season around a little bit, the Nets defer. You're going to have that pick at the draft. You'll be able to call around.
No, we won't, unfortunately.
Why?
We can't. 24, we sent out 25 already. So here's the thing. The Nets already have 23. They deferred from 22 to 23. So the Nets have our 2023 first round pick unprotected.
Right.
Once the draft's over, we can't trade 24 because you can't trade back-to-back picks. So we have 25 already out to OKC. So we can't trade 24.
No, but what I'm saying is if the Nets defer.
The Nets already deferred.
The
Nets deferred, yeah. So the Nets had the option to take 22 or 23. So yeah, so we actually can't trade that pick until the 2024 draft, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah, but they'll have multiple far out picks that they can pick from after this year. So if they're really, I would not. I would not. But also, we talked about it on the last episode. Morty doesn't trade unprotected picks. If he's trading one of those picks, he'll like top 5 protected or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like I probably still would be like, all right. I think it's more likely, and we'll talk about in the bad contract draft. It's more likely that he splits up the contract into like kind of like the Porzingis deal last year, where you get a Spencer Dinwiddie and a Davis Bertans.
Exactly, that's a perfect example. Or like something like that, where you get 2 undervalued guys, probably guys we're going to talk about who are going to be on the thing, and you're trading an expiring guy for 2 smaller contracts, also not very good, but are maybe like and have an extra year on them or something, like a 2-year contracts instead of one's expiring and one's a 2-year contract or something like that, and then. Yeah, that's like exactly what you guys need to do. Just because that's just the problem, I think, for your guys' team. It's just you just need a little bit more out of that Tobias spot, you know. Like
there's no flexibility when you're paying Tobias more than James Harden and Joel Embiid.
That's crazy.
It's insane how much. And look, he's good for the games like last night where you just need a guy down the stretch that can get you buckets, and occasionally he'll have these games where he turns into Carmelo Anthony and you're like, okay, great, we'll take it. But you can't be obviously paying that guy more than your best 2 players. He's like your 4th or 5th best player and you're paying him insane money. But speaking of contracts that we might end up talking about later, PJ Tucker, once again, scoreless for the 4th straight. Have you looked at PJ Tucker's on-offs recently? He's making history. I'm not even joking. He was the first player to play more than 25 minutes in 4 straight games and not score a single point.
Wow.
He is literally breaking records right now.
So can I say something about that, though? Because I would you rather have that or Colin Sexton?
So I would rather have PJ Tucker, and hear me out here. Yeah. For what the Sixers need, especially, I would rather have.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah. Because and this is what I said to Chiodo on the last episode, where I was like, we can't trade Tobias and PJ Tucker because if we do, we have literally like our best wing then becomes De'Antony Melton, who's 6'3" and is a guard. Like we really can't do anything that is. Like takes away from our wing depth, even though these guys can be a little bit of a clunky fit and they can drive you crazy sometimes. But if you look at the thing that I talked about earlier on Twitter was what's amazing about PJ Tucker. And I do think that this, once again, I'm concerned. Like he went 0 for 5 last night or 0 for 6. Like he was smoking everything. Right. He even was being passive. Like he was a quick trigger guy, moving the ball, whatever. He was being passive. Like he would get the ball and he would stall. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck Philadelphia does to people, but it just breaks their fucking brains. But I have right here from his last 5 games, he has played 163 minutes. He has scored 2 points, and he has gone 1 for 9 from the field. In those 5 games, he is a plus 63.
So that's the thing. So, but this is what I'm saying, and why that makes sense to me. I mean, maybe a little bit less so. This point doesn't stand as much for like this Nets game, but especially for your team moving forward, like if you've got Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, and Joel Embiid on your team,
sure,
you want a guy who does that. Like taking shots at that point is bad. You know what I'm saying? Like
unless necessary.
Unless it's absolutely necessary. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're like absolutely getting schemed off the floor. But we've seen in the playoffs, PJ Tucker, if you're scheming someone that hard, he can hit enough corner threes that it makes sense. It's just they don't need him to do that, like especially in these games. You know what I'm saying? Like he does need to. That's why he's shooting and trying and missing, because they do need more scoring punch than they would normally. But I don't know. I think it'll be fine for you guys, like in the long run. You know,
I think it would be way better if we had, and this isn't even a knock on Tobias, who's actually been pretty good in his role when everyone is healthy, but it would be perfect, and I know this is going to make Sixers fans sick, but if we had just never traded Mikal Bridges, like if we had Mikal Bridges at the 3 with this team, you have a guy who you can put on the other team's best player, who can make open threes, who can shoot off movement, who can attack a closeout, who can do everything. PJ Tucker would be the perfect 5th starter for that lineup.
If the Suns had ever won a title, that would go. You guys kind of dodged a bullet just in terms of that being a big what if. You know what I'm saying? That you might have to see in like an ESPN 30 for 30 someday or something like that. Like,
100%.
If the Suns had won the title, like so, you know, but hopefully they never win the title. Poor Zaire Smith, man.
He scored 25 points in the first game of that finals on like 5 for 5 from 3. And I remember just like melting down that night, being like, we all knew this guy was great. They traded him away, but whatever. The past is in the past. That's the perfect kind of 3 that you need for this team. But every team wants that guy. Like
that's
every
the
team
thing
wants
about the 3. Yeah, I was gonna say that's the thing with the 3. It's like, oh, we just need a guy who can guard 2s and 3s and is good from 3, not high usage, and can move the ball. That's like awesome, sick. Like, you know who else needs that? 25 other teams in the NBA.
Yes.
There's like 6 of those guys, and like 2 of them are like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That's why the Celtics are good, is because our 2 stars are those like guys that are super rare, you know?
Yeah, the Clippers and Celtics hoarded all of them. Yeah.
Yes. To say that if the Clippers have more of a hypothetical thing with, you know, Paul George and Kawhi, but you know, the same thing, you know, like you end up with those guys, you know. It's part of the reason why I kind of get what the Spurs are doing, you know, like with the, you know, Vassell and Johnson and, you know, some of the other stuff that they're working on. So I don't know. But anyway.
No, I've been saying for a while, I think Mikal Bridges is like the new Danny Green, where like Danny wasn't nearly as, to be
honest. Yeah.
No, he is. But Danny, I think Danny at his peak was a better defender because his off-ball defense, his transition defense, and his on-ball as a whole was the incredible.
Transition defense in particular. Like
exactly.
He might be the greatest transition defender of all time.
He was amazing. And offensively, his role wasn't as advanced. He wasn't as advanced of an offensive player as Mikal Bridges. But for the modern game, that's like the closest comp I could think for him is that Danny Green. He's like a 3-and-D plus guy, whereas Danny Green was like at his peak was like the best 3-and-D guy, role player, perfect 5th starter. Mikal's probably more like a 4th guy who, like, you know, because he can do a little bit off the dribble. He can be a little bit of a creator, but you're not going to ask him to run any offense for you. But yeah, so before we end the Sixers part of this podcast, shout out to Parm and Daniel, who will be very happy to learn the Sixers signed our boy Tim Bontemps broke the news yesterday that the Sixers have signed Saben Lee to a 2-way. Saben Lee, famously from the Bojan Bogdanovic trade recently, and then Utah immediately cut him. But he's a 6. You can go watch him on YouTube. He's a hooper. He's a 6. He can't shoot very well, but he's very good at everything else. He's like a 6'2", 6'3" guard, speedy guy, very like he's a good defender. Like I like this use of the two-way for the Sixers because I think they've blown their two-way spots a lot recently. But Parm and Daniel have loved Saban Lee for a while. I'm glad that they're happy regarding this. But Mark Stein wrote an article today saying that he is rooting for Ben Simmons, and I get that because I if I were a neutral observer, I could understand rooting for Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
But he had one part that I just wanted to call out here, which is that he said that the Sixers quit. For some reason, he called him Benjamin David Simmons. The Sixers quit on Ben Simmons before he quit on them, which I don't even know how that is possible.
Like, is he saying that like, I guess if you set the inflection point as the Hawks series and you're saying like Doc and Embiid, like not going to the mat for him when he lost them the series. I just don't know how, because that's the thing. It's one thing if a guy like messes up like a little bit, but when you like literally cost your team a series that you absolutely should win.
It wasn't like a one-play thing. It wasn't like Jimmy Butler, after carrying the team, shooting the three at the end of the Celtics series.
Right. It's not Weber taking the timeout in the corner or anything like that. Like, that they don't have. It's not like it's not even J.R. Smith with the fucking the dribbling around with the like in the finals.
Exactly. It wasn't a mental error. It was game after game of not showing up in the biggest moments that everyone was pissed about. Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, you were reading the
But no, I just think Mark Stein is a clown and no one should take him seriously. I thought that was really funny. Mark Stein, you are a loser. Also, you have gotten like every single fucking trade about the Sixers wrong for like he said Harden was coming here the first time. He said Lowry. Well, he wasn't wrong about that, but it was just a year and a half later that he ended up coming. But Lowry, he said, was coming to the Sixers. At one point, he traded before Isaiah Thomas was traded to the Celtics. Isaiah Thomas was traded to the Sixers.
When I have been in my depths on the ethical tanking thing, I reference that as an inflection point because you guys absolutely could have had Isaiah Thomas, in that thing, but the timeline is why fuck up the tank,
sure.
That's the thing. That's the inflection point there. But point taken. I don't know that you can kind of tell which guys are falling out of favor with like they're just not as plugged in. And I think Mark kind of falls in that. He really only ever had like Dallas sources. I feel like
Dallas and Houston were the two teams, which is why we all believed him on the Harden thing. So it's really unfortunate, but I just needed to touch on that. Go away, bozo. No one needs to hear your thoughts on the Sixers anymore. So this will be the end of the free part of the episode. If you want to listen to the whole thing, go subscribe to the Patreon. The link is in the description. We will be talking about some slop that's happening around the NBA currently, some rumors, and also we will be drafting the 20 worst contracts in the NBA. Me and Sam will be doing that. That's something we wanted to do for a while, and it's our own unique original idea, by the way.
Yes, this is something we came up with. Also, I'll be revealing the woman I have a crush on. So if you're a female listener of the podcast, and you're interested in that, feel free to, keep listening. You're not out of the running yet. This is not me locking myself into, something. It would help to know your competition,
If you're part of the 2% of women that listen to this podcast and not the 98% of men who listen to this podcast, you're going to want to keep listening. So
you're going to want to lock in here. Yeah, absolutely.